we're very lucky this afternoon to have 3 conservators who will be speaking about different topics in conservation. Flying in from Australia, we have Ms. Victoria Pierce. I'll introduce them to you individually. Our format is each speaker will have 20 minutes, and then questions will be asked later, okay? So, Ms. Lourdes Po will also be here, and of course, Mr. LORETO APILADO of the Ortigas Foundation. I'm really sorry to say that we have to more or less stick to the time. Ms. Pierce will be flying off for Australia at 5 p.m., leaving the museum at 5 p.m., but we have enough time, I think, and there will be snacks served, and you could always stand up and help yourself to coffee or water, which is here for you for free, okay? So I hope you feel welcome. Without further ado, let me start by introducing our first speaker. Our first speaker is Ms. Lourdes Po. She's a good friend. Let me just read her short bio. wait. So, yeah. Ms. Lourdes Po is from the Archdiocese of Maynila, where she is the head conservator. Okay, Maria Lourdes Po is a conservator at the Museo ng Arkidiyosesis ng Maynila of the Roman Catholic Archbishop of Manila, where she is responsible for the conservation of the museum collection, project, and research initiatives. She obtained her undergraduate degree in microbiology and master in cultural heritage studies from the University of Santo Tomas. Ms. Po has participated in several conservation training courses and workshops, one of which is the IIC International Training Center for Conservation's Scientific Approaches to the Preventive Conservation course in 2015, from which she has developed an interest towards preventive conservation of heritage objects and collection environment. So today, she's going to help us understand what preventive conservation is and how we could apply it to our art collections in our homes and our galleries and our museums. Let's all give a warm round of applause to Mr. Lourdes Po.
Thank you. Thank you, Ricky, for the introduction, for the kind introduction, and thank you everyone for coming. Caring for paintings is not a figment of your imagination. This title was actually my friend came up with this title, and it's a play of words. And I thought of using it for today's presentation as the title of my presentation. And I believe that as owners of a painting, we have the ability and the responsibility to care for our artwork. And it's not just something that is impossible because we may not be specialists in conservation, or we might not be familiar or do not know how to care for our paintings. But it's actually very doable. And so my topic is about this. So for this afternoon, I will be talking about how to care for paintings at home. There's a saying that prevention is better than cure, and this also applies to artworks, whether in a museum or a gallery setting or at home. I will be discussing some practical preventive conservation strategies that can be done at home to help preserve your paintings on canvas. So for my outline, we have the definition of terms, painting construction, agents of deterioration in this, types of deterioration or damage. We'll also discuss about handling, display and storage, and of course, finally, maintenance and monitoring. So for definition of terms, so I'd like to describe what is conservation of tangible heritage. I took this definition from the definition by the International Council of Museums Committee for Conservation. And it says that conservation of tangible heritage is the measure and actions aimed at safeguarding tangible cultural heritage while ensuring its accessibility to present and future generations. So conservation is about preventive conservation, remedial conservation and restoration. So all the measures and actions should respect the significance and of course the physical properties of a heritage asset. Next slide, please. So another, we have actually a Philippine heritage law that describes conservation. Here, in the Philippine Cultural Heritage Act of 2009, also known as RA 166, conservation is described as the processes and measures of maintaining the cultural significance of a cultural property, including but not limited to preservation, restoration, reconstruction, protection, or adaptation, and any combination thereof. Next slide. We also have some definitions of preventive conservation. So what is preventive conservation? For the ICOM CC Committee for Conservation, it is all measures and actions aimed at avoiding and minimizing future deterioration or loss. They are carried out within the context of or surrounding the item, more often a group of items, or whatever their age and condition. These measures and actions are indirect, meaning they do not interfere with the materials and structure of the items. They do not modify their appearance. Another term from the Institute of Conservation and Conservation Professional Organization in the UK, they describe preventive conservation as all conservation activities designed and applied indirectly to an object to prevent or minimize future damage or deterioration or decay. Next slide. So first, let me describe for some of you who are not very familiar with how a painting is constructed. So next slide, please. So a painting is made up of an auxiliary support, a support layer, and then the preparatory layers or the ground layer. And we also have the paint layers or the color layer. And finally, the coating layers or the varnish. So in every layer of a painting, there needs to be sort of a protection that we can do, preventive conservation measures that we can do, so that all layers of a painting will be protected. Next slide, please. So what are the agents of deterioration? First of all, so that we can further understand preventive conservation, we have to know what are the causes of damage or deterioration. So what are the causes of damage? So here are some of the generally identified agents or causes of deterioration and associated risks. So of course we have, the first is biological. So it can be mold, which is very prevalent in hot and humid climates. And then we also have insects and other pests. There is also the risk of fire, and then incorrect relative humidity and temperature. We also have physical forces such as vibration, gravity, abrasion, and shock. There is also the presence of pollutants, air pollution, chemical or particulate, and then we have radiation. We have visible light, sunlight, and of course the more dangerous UV light. There's also the risk of theft and vandalism. There's risk of water damage, and finally there's also neglect. Next slide, please. So what are the types of damage and degradation? Next. First, here are some examples. So we won't be discussing a very extensive types of damage, just very common ones that you can probably see in your home. So first is accretion. So it's any surface, any kind of dirt that has accumulated on the surface. The term soiling is used when dirt is embedded into the support layer. So next slide, please. Then we also know about cracks. Cracks can be caused by extreme changes in temperature and relative humidity over a period of time. It affects all layers of the painting. There are different forms of cracks, such as Asian cracks, crackle, drying cracks, or something that we also call alligator ring. So in this photo, you might be familiar with the lower image. I'm sure you know this very famous smile. So this is actually the Mona Lisa. So is the Mona Lisa is known to have very fine age cracks. But recent study has shown that these cracks are actually protected. So not all cracks can be detrimental to the painting. The one on the upper image is actually a type of a dry crack, an alligator ring. So next slide, please. Another type of damage is something that is called cupping. Cupping from the term because it is usually found in aged paint. It's loosened by cracking and the edges are curled to create cup-like formations. That's why the name, the term cupping. Next slide, please. Fading. I actually don't have a photo for this, but I think you might be familiar with how a faded painting would look like. So definitely, it's generally the result of a chemical reaction or exposure to direct sunlight or UV. It is a gradual loss of brightness or brilliance of colors, or the gradual weakening of the pigment saturation. Next slide, please. This one we're also familiar with. Some of you might have a painting or a collection of paintings with flaking. So flaking is the separation of paint into thin, flattened pieces or layers due to a combination of loss of adhesion or cracking. That's the image. Next slide. Then we also have a mold. So I actually included mold and foxing as somewhat similar and yet also different terms because mold is any of various fungi growths which invade many organic surfaces. They provide, the surfaces provide sufficient moisture, and if present, the organisms produce enzymes that dissolve or degrade the host material or the substrate, which is the painting substrate. So, what is foxing? So, sometimes a mold looks like a foxing, but actually a foxing is not always a mold. Sometimes a foxing can be from metallic impurities, inherent vice, inherent to the painting. So this one is actually foxing is a small or reddish blotch found on the surface of a painting, and most often they are found on works of art on paper. This sample of mine is actually a work of art on paper, but they can also be found on canvas paintings. It is caused by mold growth or, as I said, I mentioned a while ago, oxidizing metals, especially for paper. So next slide, please. And last sample for our types of deterioration would be the tide line. So tide lines are caused by a liquid coming into contact with the painting and subsequently drying, leaving a concentration of dirt or paint around its edges. So that is what's called, also called a water damage tide line. So we'll talk about safety handling, not just handling, but safe handling. So before handling, we have to make sure that our hands are clean. Preferably, if we have available, we have on hand some gloves. So ideally, nitrile powder-free nitrile gloves. Or if you don't have nitrile gloves, then cotton gloves would be also good. And without gloves, you can also use your bare hands. Just make sure that you wash your hands before you handle artworks. So you also have to, first, take off personal accessories. So accessories that can snap on or scratch the paint layers or the frames should be removed. Assess the painting on both sides, so the front and back. You have to check and make sure that there is no flaking paint and that the painting is secure in its frame before you do the handling or the movement, the relocation. So you also have to plan your move. You have to prepare the receiving area where you will relocate the painting or move your painting. Carry the painting with one hand on the side and underneath for support. So one hand on the side and the other hand underneath for support. So you can see both images have this kind of, they hold it this way. Never carry a painting that is hanging wire. So make sure that the hanging wire will not touch the back of the canvas and secure it if necessary. If necessary, if you have to tape the hanging wire, then please do so. And if the canvas painting does not have a backboard, check that the stretcher wedges are secure. If you must move a painting with flaking paint, carry it flat and face up. So you don't have to lose any paint while you're moving. Yes, please. So if you have a large painting to move, then you need to have two people. You have to employ two people to handle large paintings. And if you have trolley available, then please use it. And we recommend this A-frame trolley to move the especially large paintings. Next slide, please. So for storage and display, the painting display and storage environment should ideally be stable in order to prevent deterioration and damage before they happen. So what are the environmental conditions? We have to take note that light, UV light, or ultraviolet radiation, RH, relative humidity, and temperature, as well as pollution index, are all environmental conditions that we should be aware of. So, next slide, please. So, for this, we have actually recommended temperature, relative humidity, and light ranges for our artworks. The temperature and relative humidity are the most important factors that affect the environment of artworks, as they are always present and directly affect the material decay of most types of objects, especially here in the Philippines, where we have a tropical and maritime climate. RH is a measure of the water vapor content in air, while dew point is the temperature at which air is saturated with water vapor. So research has shown that dew point is responsible for determining the temperature and relative humidity settings for the storage environment. So I think in this case, there is, in recent years, there's already an environmental guidelines for heritage objects are shifting away from prescriptive narrow ranges of temperature and relative humidity. So now there's a shift to more sustainable and relaxed parameters, ranges, as compared to the previous prescriptive ranges that most Western museums employ. So now, globally, they're shifting towards a more relaxed. So this is, I actually mentioned this just for you to be aware that this is the current range. But now, in overseas museums, they're trying to adapt a more relaxed environmental parameters. So that's the trend now. Okay, for next slide, please. For display recommendations, we have the following. So frames are both functional and decorative. Use glazing to protect painting to reduce the risk of damage. If you have, please consider conservation framing if you have this in mind. Keep paintings away from open gas or open fires, heating and cooling ducts, that means air conditioning, smoke and food preparation areas. You also have to avoid direct sunlight or artificial lights containing UV such as fluorescent lighting. Secure the reverse of the frame to buffer from any sudden changes to the cutting board. So storage recommendations. So we have the following. So we have to store paintings in upright or vertical position in a cool and dry place. This is the ideal setting. Use protective covers such as cotton cloth or a private cloth. You also have to store, you can also use storage racks that can be used for a collection of paintings if you have more than one painting. So what storage systems can be used? So storage shelves or cabinets can be constructed from metal, coated wood, or stable plastics such as polyethylene. Paintings should be stacked back to back or front to front, with dividers or interleaving sheets such as foam core or acid-free board or pivot. There's also the slotted multi-purpose storage rack, such as this image. And then there's also you can also stack your paintings vertically against an exterior wall. So this is a temporary option. However, and this is the chosen or only option that you have, pieces of heavy-duty acid-free board or foam core should be used as protective dividers. Paintings should be placed on padded blocks 4 inches high to prevent damage from possible flooding. And then there's also the most simple option, hanging your paintings along the wall. So if you have one, if you can hang them, then that would be a better option. And then next slide, please. So monitoring and maintenance. So regular dusting using a soft bristled microbrush is soft bristled paintbrush or cosmetic brush is recommended. You can also clean with a vacuum cleaner with a HEPA filtration. And take note, variable suction control. Not all vacuum cleaners have this, so there are some specific that we can discuss later. You can ask later. And if you have to clean the glazing, you can use fragrance and dye-free mild dishwashing detergent and distilled water solution for when dry cleaning is not effective. And then also good housekeeping and regular inspection of painting for possible deterioration or damage. And finally, when necessary, please consult a conservator or a specialist. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lou. It's so refreshing to know that we, even as non-specialists, can do something to preserve our art and our collections. Thank you for giving the guidelines and for relaxing the guidelines from the very strict temperature and humidity controls before to a more humane, more understandable, more sustainable system. So for the questions, let's ask them later. I'd like to introduce our next speaker. The topic will be focused mostly on paper because our next speaker works for a library mostly, and paper is such interesting. It's a very interesting topic for us because our humidity always works against paper. Our monsoon system, our monsoon weather, and even insects attack it a lot. So for today, we have the pleasure of hosting Mr. Engineer Loreto Apilado, who works as a senior conservation consultant at the Ortigas Foundation Library and also conducts workshops on preventive conservation and conservation in the same institution. He renders technical assistance to museums, archives, libraries, and business enterprises all over the country. He's also into hand paper making, book arts, and contemporary paper works. He's specializing in becoming the country's first book and paper conservation engineer, and lately developed the first locally made leaf casting machine in the Philippines. Let me introduce Mr. Loreto Apilado.
Okay. Thank you, Ricky. Thank you for coming. If you miss the preventive conservation and your work and your collection is in dire needs of repair, you come to us conservator painting, but us in paper based, like this. The Ortigas Foundation Conservation Laboratory is from the start is an open conservation laboratory. You know what? Traditionally, conservation laboratories are secret, hidden. The conservators are working alone in their own laboratory. But for us, I think now around the world is now some museums are now open. You could see them in open with a glass that something like that. And you could see next slide, please, like this one. You could see now our workshop laboratory. You could see us working inside. Now this is an alley going there. So you could see what we are doing before it's not. No? So here we started 15 years ago with small rooms, a pantry and a maid's room. And then we do the collection of the library itself. No? The library, the Ortigas Foundation Library, their books, the collection of maps and something like that. No? And in that time we fabricate our from time to time, we also acquire some, through experience, we develop, and what they said is, next slide, is now this our library, conservation lab, which now we have our own cabinet, no, and a card catalog cabinet. We upcycled into a tool cabinet, this at the right, and then it's not so clear, no, is our small, our left casting machine, and then some boxes later. So this is our collection that we are treating, no, before, no. We do also photographs, but sometimes photographs just because photographs is a different thing, it's a very complex artifacts, But we do books and prints. Prints is a little bit okay because the ink is permanent, you cannot bleed. So prints, and this one is the worst artifacts we had. You see the timelines that we said, and we call this one now is a garbage. Much worse, no? I have before the conservation laboratory in the Philippines or in other countries, collectors are not they are passing this one, no? No, it's not that good. So we just throw it. Oh no, we just taken for granted. But now they are now going to that one. No, they are collectors are now looking for anything that is even like garbage already. No, so because we could now transform them into a new one. Later we'll show you. Okay, next slide please. But not this one. We don't do this one. You know this one? This is a certificate that is laminated. We don't. we are not doing that. This one. We reject this one. We just told the owner that we just disintegrate. We could not because it's already adhere to the glass or to the plastic. No? So next slide, please. So in our services, we have assessed also. We give assessment to collectors or private collectors. We have to assist, give them treatment proposals. Sometimes because of technology now, they are showing their collection through the internet, but high resolution now. So we will study that, examine through that, and if we could see that we could do it, we will ask them to print the original. So first, we already have the knowledge of what happened, no? And then because again of this new technology, before it's hard to document. So now it's digital camera, so you could make a lot of pictures before and then after, and even during our process. So we could document all of what we are doing before, after, and during. So this first is we do our dry and mechanical cleaning. Dry mechanical cleaning is we do it the term is mechanical cleaning is the eraser, while the mechanical cleaning is we remove the dirt, no, because we could not remove by eraser, so we use the scalpel. Next slide, please. And then the next thing is fumigation or disinfecting. Now I don't know if we do that here, but we are still doing it. But it's very expensive equipment of doing this disinfecting. You know what is that? I think this big one. Freezer. Using freezer. Because it's very expensive freezer. So you freeze your artifacts to kill all those eggs of moles or something like the eggs of the insects. It's very, but it's so expensive. So we have device disinfecting that's still used today, but. Most conservators don't allow us anymore, but we are taking ourselves here because we use that is the periparanichlorobenzene. you know that one. It's albatross in so it's very smell. So before going into that, because it's like a drawer, no. Before putting the books or artifacts inside, we don't use it. We don't put it for yet the albatross there, no. We put more, and then after putting all the artifacts inside the box, now we will we'll put the chemicals with a glass container there, and then put it like a slide. And then, so the smell is not yet present. So you just put inside, and then it will. The fumigation is now inside the smell. Okay, next slide, please. That's our. And then we do also flattening. No, that's a crumpled paper, and then we do the flattening. Okay. No, it's a simple one. No, we do that by pressing. No, we do that by washing and then put it in a glass. Not a secret, but you could learn from us. Next slide, please. And then we do also removing this anywhere before is using the used tape for repairing the artwork at the back, So ply, it's horrible, really. It's if you see these maps, you think that you could not do it anymore because that is already full of masking tape, packing tape, no. But we did it layer by layer with removing that packing tape, no. This is yet, no. You come to the hard part. Next hard part is put this the old one, no. All artworks before are pasted by using a rugby or the plastic cement on the acidic plywood. But luckily the plywood is layer by layer. You could remove, no, layer by you to see it, no. First layer, remove it. Second layer, remove it again because you could not remove the artwork, no, peeling the artwork of the plywood. No. The artwork will be destroyed. So you have to destroy the plywood. To destroy the plywood, remove the plywood layer by layer until the remaining part is the artwork, the paper artwork. And then this is the hardest part of it. This is not the hardest part. Using the lawanit, no, the masonite, it's hard now because there's no more layer. So you have to peel. It's very hard because it's not in layer type, no. It's because it's a board, no. Masonite really is like a cardboard, but very, very, very hard, no. It's a pulp. It's using a pulp, something like that, no. Next slide, please. Then we have mending tears. This again we discovered one. No, this is for torn paper or torn pages of one. Before we used the wax paper. Wax paper is there's a residue. So now because of the it's easy now to get these materials. Before it's very expensive by the conservators. We use this. Next slide, please. Before we used the silicone release paper. Now you could have them from the supermarket. The non-stick paper. It's the same as the silicone release paper, was very expensive, no? This one is you could do that also in you could acquire this in the but it's no residue on them. So this is our next this is our discovery. Next slide, please. And then this is our wish list, no? We said it's already in Lazada, no? But we're looking for this one. This is a substitute because before we are using really for start space. But in Australia, this Dios, it's our own here. You know that? Dari wayway gaw-gaw. The tapioca or cassava starch. It's used for conservation. Yes, but you have to prepare them very expensive and very tedious one. Use that in Japan, no? They put this with a strainer, and it's very expensive also the strainer, the bamboo strainer. But this one is convenient, no? Because you could prepare this one automatic, you just press them and then it will stir. Because stirring is very hard, no? And then also the problem of the starch paste is it's soiled easily, no? So maybe you can use that one for maybe 1 week. Because even if you put that in the ref, no, the consistency is not the same as the other. So what we are using, and it's still available, but sometimes I think a week ago or a month ago, it become not available anymore in our chemical stores, no, retail stores. It's out of stock, but happily it came out again. This is we call the this maple cellulose paste, MC paste or whatever. So we have again it's stock. So that one we are using, but it's very good because it's not soil. It will there's no expiration, but it's available. It's nice. But traditionally we use the starch paste, the wheat starch. Next slide, please. Now this is now the hard part that as I told you, necessity is the mother of all invention. So this is the start of looking for an equipment that we call now the leaf casting machine. One of our clients is putting this, give us this book full of insect holes, no? And they said, no, wait there, we don't have yet the equipment. Then next time, then another client, next slide please, this one again, no? So we have to have, so you could see the tide lines there, and then those losses there, no? So it's hard again to have this manually, no? Manually put some infilling there. So next slide please. So by treating this one, we wash it first and then dry clean. Dry clean first before washing. You will remove the mold residue, and then next slide please. Then we do the washing. I don't know if we use the capillary washing. Yeah, not the soap. Yes. The capillary washing, but again, no, not any paper that is kind of paper that we use the capillary washing, because there are paper that is very delicate. Okay, next slide please. So this is now our leaf casting machine that we made. Next slide please. Yeah. Next slide please. Next slide. Okay, now this is how we use it. Let's look one mistake, another mistake. No, we are really don't believe. No, we can believe also that we could have this one. Next slide, please. This one. After that, we have now the retouching. No, again, internet again is very helpful. We sometimes go there and then look for the missing one. Okay, next slide please. Okay, this one now, the two, and then the next one please, are the before, and now now this one is our result. Okay, the book, so then you should fill up holes. Okay, so this is the one that is our client would like to change the book, so we do magic, no? We do the original. I draw that one, no? I really draw that all of that to copy the original cover. We also some custom-made boxes for it, no, to protect. And luckily, this one helps this collector, no. From this house, there's a fire. So this helps. And then the box destroyed, but the book is intact. So it's very important. And then next slide, please. Then we do also encapsulate. Thank you. Okay. Encapsulation, but we add now the foam board as back support because it's ready for framing, no? And then next slide, please. And then we do also workshop, and we have a foreign guest facilitator, which is Mark Cochran, expert in book binding. He loved the Philippines and come to time to teach with us. No? And then next slide, please. This is our seat backs are temporary. And sometimes our works are hard, but we have some. We have to wait and then come back with the necessity. And then the last is patience is a virtue. Yeah, it's a hard work.
Next speaker is Victoria Pearce. She is the Director of Endangered Heritage, Australia's leading art conservation company. She has worked around the world giving conservation advice and support and runs a lab with over 10 experts in a variety of fields. She has lived in Manila and understands the art, the materials used, and the climate we are in. She is an international member of the ICOMOS ICORP, a member of Australian Risk Policy Institute, and a professional member of the Australian Institute for the Conservation of Cultural Materials. She's also an accredited valuer. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the guys.
Thank you, Ricky. And I have a very big voice. I don't think I need this. So if I'm too loud, I'm sorry. And if I speak too fast, will someone tell me to slow down? Because Australians are we speak fast. So thank you very much for the invitation to speak. And I think I want to congratulate both the conservators here. I am very grateful that they started with their very early principles of preventive conservation. And I'm going to build on that and amplify their knowledge because they're doing some fantastic work here. And I think that the most important thing to express is that, none of us are medical doctors, but all of us work hard to take care of our children and to prevent them from getting sick. Even with the best care, they still can get sick, and that there is no embarrassment or shame to then have to seek an expert like a doctor. So I think the most important thing is to understand that the risks and insects and the humidity or a typhoon, something can really create a lot of damage, but there's no shame in that. Really come forward, because as doctors know, we know that we all do our best, but sometimes you need an expert. So let's get started. My talk's going to be about framing. I come from Endangered Heritage. I'm very fortunate that I work with a remarkable conservator who, is so remarkable. I married him. And one day we'll both come together and hopefully be able to get him to talk, because he does his conservation in large technology, airplanes, trains, metal, glass. I do the textiles and painting, and I'm a bit more of a built heritage and generalist as well. But he's really got an interesting technology influence, because, as we move more into a digital space, our old technology is also going to disappear. So, okay, next slide. So first of all, I want to express that framing is not conservation. And as you've said, sir, encapsulation is better for storage and for protection than framing. And this is because framing puts the artwork under a lot of stress. Stress from light, from humidity, as the other conservators have said. And sadly, for a lot of framers, even in Australia, there are very few who have any formal training. And they have no science and they have no chemistry. Their job is to make the artwork look beautiful, not make the artwork last. And that approach is great for decorating, but not great for long-lasting artwork. So when we want our artwork to last a long time, then it becomes really critical that we go the next step. You know, you can feed your kids fast food, but it's not going to keep them healthy. You want to go the next step, then you feed them good quality food, fruit and vegetables. It's kind of the same. The quality in our framing matters. So, next one. So, I'm going to double up and show here that paper and photo in frames are under a lot of hard work, because you're going to experience potentially fading. And this is a document that also has foxing and also mold. So as Lou said, that you can end up with foxing, which is from often the water when the paper was made in the very first, in its first manufacture, and that can cause problems because no one knows when they make paper, they make it cheap because, maybe it's just going to be a restaurant menu, maybe it's going to be an artwork. The people who make the paper, they don't care. It's only when it's been made into an artwork or a document that we start seeing the problems and we start to care, and this is when we need to really be washing out those impurities and going that next step. So, the quality of materials are really important, and that's because everything in the world is becoming more acidic as it ages. Everything. And that's actually good. That's a good thing. Because otherwise, we'd have all of the leaves and dead animals and everything from last year up here around our eyes. Nothing would break down. Nothing would deteriorate. It's that acidity which keeps the cycle of life. So in a nutshell, if we want to make something not break down in that cycle, we stop the acidity. We make sure that we stop the acidity by using non-acidic paper, good quality framing materials, good quality backing materials, and we do everything we can to remove that acidity. But it's not magic, right? That paper and those backing boards, they're also aging. They're also going to become acidic. They don't stay non-acidic forever. So you need to be monitoring that paper and you need to be changing it. You can't frame things forever. And I have here a really good example of a piece of paper that had an embroidery. This was behind an embroidery in a frame. And you can see where the acidity from the fabric and the paper combined has actually etched the paper, right? And created that shadow. So when you trap this acid inside a frame and it cannot escape, you start seeing this deterioration begin. And just like the leaves outside, when that acidity is there, it attracts insects. It attracts other things like the mold. Everything wants to come now and help break it down. Okay? So then you start getting what we call really complex combinations of deterioration. So as Lou said, with the foxing, it's often just the beginning of acidity from cations from metals in the paper. But that acidity then brings mold. And that acidity then will eventually, the mold becomes food for insects. Because it's just fungi, the insects don't mind a mushroom diet. So you start getting all of this complex layering. So in a nutshell, the preventive step is reduce that acidity first, right? And then when you've done that, you also are automatically reducing insects, the risk of mold and other problems. The other thing about acidity, just like our leaves as they break down, everything that's starting to break down is designed by sunlight to break down further. Get warm, sunlight. So our lighting catalyzes that deterioration. It speeds it up. It's all that extra energy speeds up. It's like putting something on the stove. It's cooking now. You've got the acid going and it's cooking with heat and light, right? So this is where if you get rid of the acidity, you buy yourself some time. And if you replace your framing materials, and as the Ortigas Library is using really good paper and leaf casting and then encapsulation and monitoring and checking all of those things, so if it starts going wrong, you catch it early. Because that's actually the really important part. Okay, because eventually those materials are also getting acid. They're getting old. You can't stop anything from getting older, right? Okay. So when we are looking at our framing, we need to really consider what we're going to stick the artwork down with. And we've seen packing tape, we've seen staples, we've seen acidic glue. All of those things are now putting acid inside our frame, which is exactly what we don't want, right? Starch paste is not going to be adding extra chemicals and extra acidity. So sometimes these very traditional methods, they're the most pure. They're the most simple. The chemical adhesives, they're brilliant for untrained framers because they're fast, they dry fast. It's, stick and go, make the money, next one. But not any good for art investments, not any good for an art museum, right? So what's it stuck down with really makes a big difference. Especially if you have got glazing, because suddenly it's like a lunchbox. It's like a lunchbox with acid and heat and light and now bad adhesive. You're really cooking now, right? How is this artwork going to survive now? Whether it's textiles or a painting, like it's literally cooking. And the language we use is that is being burnt. Like we really mean that it's cooking. Okay. So PVA, which is polyvinyl acetate, right, becomes with humidity and time acetic acid, which is the chemical name for vinegar. So it's all in the name, right? So it's not great. And staples, and you can actually see, because of the backing boards and the materials, you start seeing the damage that happens on the artwork. Okay. With textiles, you'll often see textiles will be laced. Does everyone know what I mean by laced? It's where the textile will be wrapped around a piece of cardboard, like a embroidery, and it's wrapped around to, from the front, around the back, and then someone's grabbed a thread and back and forth, back and forth, back and forth to tension it. So the problem with that is, one, you're putting a lot of stress on those fibres. They're already under enough stress, really, because you've got them on display with light and humidity and insects, and now you want to stretch them also. So that puts them also in contact with the actual timber of the frame. I can't do this. I need my hands. I'm used to it being. So you'll also end up seeing with the textile wrapped around the back, you will also see that now the textile is touching the wood, right? But we all know that wood is full of acid as well, right? And it's going to make that textile burn on the edge, right? Until it literally falls apart. So the next time this object gets framed, it's smaller. So now your framer is putting more around the back. Every time you go to frame it, it's getting smaller and smaller until finally you have this tiny little stupid thing, right? No more investment. So it's really critical, particularly with textiles. And when I say textiles, I also mean the fabric of our paintings, right? That we really consider the barrier between that fabric and the wood, okay? Because it's going to get burned. And that means even with a really good painting, it's going to eventually become a problem on that edge. And if you look at an old painting, you'll see the nails, they're all rusty, they're in contact with the wood and the acid, the canvas on the fold, it's kind of falling apart. That's because we need a barrier layer in here. And actually, so, you know, that same really good quality paper that's non-acidic is the best barrier. You just keep it a little way from the wood. That paper is going to absolutely go brown, replace it. You've guaranteed your investment. And there's some young artists here. Yeah? New, right? Now the reason Amasolo is such a master, he made his own frames. Right? And he always put in a little spacer so the canvas is not touching on the timber. There's just a little wedge, Huh? So he was very smart and his artworks last. So it's important because otherwise you're going to have no food in 10 years' time because everyone goes, it's not worth investing in their artwork. Okay? So, we need to also make sure that your framer, when you drop off and you walk away, doesn't just go, oh, it's a bit, just cut it and make it smaller. And you can see here, when this one, it's been cut, right, so that it fit. I mean, obviously now, this embroidery is going to just fall apart because someone's cut it. Right? How convenient for the framer. But, you know, not very happy Lola, I can tell you. Okay, next one. So, fading is really where that acidity and that light energy is breaking the dye bonds. Okay? Now, a fibre is a very big molecule, and a dye is a very big molecule, and they don't like each other. They don't like to connect. They're too big. So has anyone here done any dyeing? No? Yes, a little bit. We add a little bit of what we call a mordant, and it's a little bond. And it's like it's like a little kid between two parents that are big. It holds this to this. And that mordant is like a swing bridge between two big mountains. The more energy that hits it, the more it swings. So the more light, the more acid, the more that hits it, the more that bridge is swinging, more, with vibration, chemically. If it breaks, colors that used to be well connected to the fiber, suddenly they're not connected. The little molecule's gone, it's broken, right? So things that, especially, textiles, and you'll see with some dyes on paper, maybe you could wash it when it was young and you didn't have a dye bleed, but then when it gets old, it's been exposed to acid, that little bond is broken. Suddenly, you're going to get dye bleed. So that's when you really need to have a conservator. You're not doing laundry anymore. You've got something that's old and fragile and had a lot of, wear and tear, right? So you can also end up with things where, insects might get into the frame because you've got that acidity. The dyes are breaking down because of the acidity. You get the insects coming in. The object doesn't fit the frame. It's touching the timber. I mean, really, this is, you can see a complete recipe for disaster, right? So this is the lacing. See now, does everyone know what I mean? And you can see, right, that the textile, which was this big, is now folded. And when it breaks here, it's going to be smaller. Disaster. This is disaster before it's even begun. This is why framing and the proper approach to framing is really important. These guys are already busy with the old stuff. Let's not give them new broken stuff. Let's really prevent the new stuff from going bad. Okay? So the next one. So when we do particularly textiles, we also always make the board a minimum of 2 centimeters from the timber, right? So this acidity is not going to be in contact anywhere near a textile. We also make sure that we use an acid-free board that's non-acidic because we want everything inside to be really not adding to the problem. The problem is going to happen anyway. We want more time and we don't want to add to the problem. Underneath this fabric, I put 100% flannelette cotton, pre-washed, right? So it's going to act like a sponge inside my frame. It's actually going to soak that acidity and absorb it, and absorb any moisture that's trapped inside my frame from the humidity. So it protects the actual artwork, right? And then this one on top, it's just a decorative fabric, and I choose polyester usually because I want something that's not going to fade, not going to change. Something that's completely stable and not going to bleed. So even if there's a typhoon or flood, this blue is not going to come onto my artwork. It's not going to add problem. And then my textile with a very, very fine needle is stitched, not glued, stitched with a thread, right? And can you see, I have not stretched it. You know, it's gentle. It's, it's not going to go anywhere. Where's it going to go? It's on the wall. It doesn't need to be tortured. It just needs to be gently put on and just sort of strong enough that it can expand and contract a little bit with the changes in temperature. If it's stretched,
and the temperature changes, or you have your aircon on and it shrinks, it could split, right? So you don't want it tense, you want it to be able to breathe, right? So you can see here, so and when it's stitched, we make sure it's got enough space around it, and then when it goes in a frame, we also want it not to be up against the glass. This is why we always use a very deep frame. And we will use a spacer like that. Okay. Nope, I need more hands. There we go. Like that. So the spacer sits in there and you don't have the humidity trapped up against the glazing. And here's something that's going to be really radical, because Lou warned me that there's a big debate at the moment, glazing or no glazing, right? Now, one of the reasons that there is this debate is because everyone, untrained framers, always put the glazing right up next to the artwork, right? Okay, so if you put a piece of bread on your counter and you forget it and leave it, does it go moldy? It takes a long time though, right? If you wrap it in plastic and leave it on your counter, next day, it's starting to get moldy. It sweats up, right? So what we want is, we don't want the plastic right up next to the artwork. We want as much space as we can so there's air in there. Okay? And we don't use glass, not anymore, right? We never use glass, but we do use perspex. We do use a plastic. There's a few reasons for using the plastic. One is that if the artwork has a tragedy and falls to the ground, the glass is going to slice your paper, it's going to slice your painting or your textile, and maybe hurt someone. If you have to transport, move house, share the exhibition, travel it, the glass is a high risk for the artwork, for the exhibition. But if you use plastic, it's safe. You just have to make sure you don't scratch it. There's one other thing that's very important. Glass allows 10% of the high energy UV light. The worst light is the UV, the non-visible light. And glass allows 10% to go through. And we all know that because we've all been sunburned sitting in our car, right? We all know that the sun and the UV still burns us coming through the glass. But it doesn't go through plastic. The high energy actually is stuck inside the plastic. It doesn't go through. It does not transmit. It is absorbed. That is why the plastic goes rubbish. It goes brown, it goes crazy, because it is sacrificially absorbing that high energy glass. Yes, you will have to replace the plastic. But your artwork has not faded. Your artwork has not had the dirt. And every 10 years when you replace the plastic, you want to be replacing all of the cardboard anyway. You want to be renewing everything inside that frame, right? And putting in non-acidic. So, actually, glass is very high risk and does not help us to protect our work. But plastic will, the perspex, and there's three types: acrylic, polyester, and acrylic carbonate, polycarbonate. All three do the same thing. They all absorb that energy. So let's get back to this. So this is where we've done a little bit of an interesting frame. It's an embroidery, and you can see that if you do something a little bit more interesting, no one actually even notices that your frame's quite deep. Okay? And you get a really beautiful finished result that's protecting your artwork. Next one. And that's my little shop in Australia. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Vic. Thank you so much, Lou, and thank you so much, Sir Loreto. Now we're opening the floor, but before that, I hope you took note of the importance of spacers, the importance of perspex, and other things that we are not normally aware of when we're doing our frames. So, we're opening the floor for questions. Okay, we have one here. Kindly pass it.
I don't need that.
Oh, sure.
All things considered from the point of view.
You need the mic.
Really? Alright, all things considered, your point of view, going from the point of view of an investor in art, which is better, to invest in oil painting or acrylic painting?
Invest in a good artist.
Yes, that's out of the question, of course. When you say investment, that means you are investing in a good, reputable artist. But you see, the tag now is most paintings are done in acrylic because it's easy to dry and things like that. But still, some are using oil, but it dries slow and it smells and something like that. So if you are in a hurry, then you have to wait. So again, which is more durable, an oil painting or acrylic painting?
So, you want to take this or you want me? I take it. Okay, so the oldest paint in history is egg yolk. It's an emulsion. Emulsions means that it mixes in water. You can put an egg in water, right? Or you can put oil with an egg. It means it does oil and water. Acrylic is an emulsion. You can even use acrylic paint and oil together. You can use acrylic and oil. It's an emulsion. It's actually very similar and has the same kind of elasticity, expansion, contraction with temperature and humidity like the oldest paints in the world. Really, the attraction for oil paints is Western dominance, to be honest. And actually, indigenous and traditional paint methods from around the world, whether it's Russia, Asia, you look at the varnishes, shellacs, you look at the beautiful, lacquerware, you look at the egg yolk, they're all emulsion. Now, the early emulsion acrylic paints were invented in 1954, and we still see those paints in modern museums around, particularly MoMA, the Whitney in America. They were the very first experimental artists willing to kind of jump off the cliff and give it a shot, and those paintings are still there. They remain easier to clean than oil paints. They remain more environmentally friendly, easier to clean up, and they actually have less cracking and less problems in changing of humidity. I think that for a lot of artists, you have more flexibility because you can get very watercolor effects all the way to thick oil paint effects. And these artworks are very versatile if you're doing a traveling exhibition. If you want a career and you want your artwork one day in England at -8 in the truck, and the next day in Hong Kong on a plane, then oil paints are a disaster for you and your investment, right? But if you have a very, very good artist whose work is appreciated, whose message is very talented, who is really insightful with a really good political message, really something inspiring, then who cares? That's the best, right?
More questions? Brilliant answer. Thank you.
There was a term that was mentioned a while ago, and I just wanted to, I guess, have a little bit more information about it. What is capillary washing?
The paper expert.
Capillary washing. It's we use all the time in the when I read in a book or in I found out that what we are doing is capillary washing. It's some kind of the water is we wash it, no? The water is run through the artwork, run through that, so that acid is what. But you should have to test your support of your hand. If it's disintegrate or it will, when the water wash away, it will wash also. Also the medium, it will also bleed, no? And the traditional really is the soap, no? Submerged. That's the traditional way. But it's hard for large artwork or paper because you need a big vat of.
It's the capillary washing. Is the material slowly? I guess is the humidity slowly introduced, or is it?
Depends on the object. Depends on the object.
After washing, we do it immediately for drying. No? If not, drying, and then lining, if you keep lining. If not, flattening, we do flattening.
You also have something
Who
to
wants to
say?
say something?
If I may add with Engineer Loreto, if I may add to Engineer Loreto's explanation, capillary washing is actually a type of aqueous treatment for paper. And from the term, you mentioned capillary, so the action is capillary action. So the materials is usually employed for water-sensitive artworks on paper. There are also other types of cleaning, aqueous treatment that you can employ, such as the cleaning. So these are the variations, and most often you use vortex as well. So it's like you apply a slide, so the humidification is slowly introduced into the artwork, and then the washing, as explained by Engineer Loreto, really like unlike as compared to the submersion method, it's less water is used.
I'm gonna pile on here. No. I can't use these. They're stupid. I'm going to pile on top of these examples. Capillary in English means small tube, and our trees use capillary action to pull water from the roots up to the top, right? And in fact, capillaries are so powerful that trees can go 80 foot. Human engineering can only go to 52 before we need another pump and use stage pumping because we're not as clever as trees, right? They're tiny, tiny tubes that are used sucking up evaporation at the top, bringing up water, and evaporating is what we do when we're cleaning. So as the engineer Lou has said, you may wet something, but then you put it on dry paper and the drinking straws, the fibers, suck the dirt out, right? They're literally, like the tree sucks the water through the tiny tubes, you use the power of the fiber to do the cleaning, not the scrubbing in the water, okay? you do it if you cut yourself and you put cotton wool. It pulls all of it to the cotton wool, and you have nothing. It's good, right? That's what engineer has demonstrated he is doing with the watertight mark. You make it wet, the drinking straw of the paper fills up with water, makes the stain soluble, like instant coffee, right? You add water, it's dissolved. So you pour the water through, it dissolves inside the tube of the paper, in the fiber, right? And then you're putting it on a support of good, clean blotting paper, and it sucks all of the stain and the dirt and the paper clean. But here's the challenge. This is why you need an expert, because that capillary action is so powerful. If you don't know what you're doing, you will suck the artwork off as well. Right? Do not try this at home.
I just also want to share because I'm actually an aspiring conservator. So that's why I want to. A lot of the terminologies I'm quite familiar with because I kind of try to learn in my pace and get familiar with what the profession is all about. So, yeah.
Lots of experience.
Yeah.
Experience.
And you've got to have, with paper, you have to have nerves of steel. Because you make a mistake, your ink, your watercolor, it's gone. And so is your career. Right? It's that easy. Like these guys, I've seen paper conservators wash watercolors. Right? Using capillary action. These guys are like circus experts flying without a net. They're crazy, like, it's no wonder they all drink coffee and walk around like this because they do the most crazy work. It's amazing, it's magic.
Next question? Yeah, please, Becky. There's a mic. Thank you.
For normal mortals like us who run libraries and exhibition centers, where do we find in the Philippines acid-free board, UV protection for our windows, just the basics for conservation? That we don't have it ordered abroad.
Yes, actually, we were talking about this earlier. It's really quite difficult to find a local supplier. There are a few local suppliers that we know, but they are really expensive. The local distributors of conservation supplies are expensive. There are a few of them actually. In our institution, in the Archdiocese, we most often import from overseas. And if we have local suppliers, there are a few that we can actually refer to you as well.
Thank you.
One is for paper, but they also import. There's one we know, a local supplier of Japanese conservation tissue. Yes, so we can also refer you. I can give you the information for the supplier. But yes, we don't have enough actually.
Yeah,
So that's a challenge.
work on that.
Yes, that's a challenge.
To keep, for example, gowns, heritage gowns, and clothing,
Yes,
they never hang.
actually.
So you fold them and you put them in
If you
cardboard.
can't find paper, use good quality, 100% cotton washed in good clean water.
Yep.
Because the cotton is the same fiber as the paper, but with none of the acidity. So you
Japanese
you
paper
can
or
switch.
cotton
switch
that's
to
been
cotton.
washed.
Yeah.
And then the containers for them, like the plastic containers you buy at Ace, or
Actually,
you have to buy cardboard, acid-free.
Yes, actually, ideally it should be acid-free, but we don't have. We have a prefabricator for its archival boxes, but the archival box that he makes is actually made of plyboard, but it's
Which is
acid
not
line.
acid.
Eventually, it will become
It will
acidic
get worse.
in
May
time.
absorb the acids
Yes, but
eventually.
yes,
So the same as your picture frame,
yes.
it's about changing that material inside. Don't worry if it's plastic. Line it like a baby blanket with your gown, textiles, 100% cotton, and then check on it. Take it out and wash the acid away. Put it back.
Oh, so recyclable.
Yeah,
reusable.
yeah. Instead of with framing material, we have to use cardboard and we have to replace. If you go to good quality cotton, you can wash the acid out, reuse
Thank
it.
you.
Yes,
Yeah.
Well, another thing about that, it's actually ideal. It's very good if you have, but locally, we do not have cotton. We have limited supply of the cotton.
Cotton
It should be
sheets.
undyed.
Yeah.
And
Undyed and
we make them
unbleached.
locally.
Yeah.
We make local cotton and
That's it. That's yes,
California
yes,
sheeting.
yes,
Buy
yes.
some sheets, cut them up.
And then you can use plastic, polyethylene, you can buy plastic that's PE, polypropylene, and PE, the types of plastic. Polyethylene and polypropylene plastic.
I want to introduce you to a product that's called a pH test, right? So this is Linico, but there's actually, in Asia, there's a couple of other producers, but actually it's just a litmus dye. So when it's on something acidic, it's yellow. When it's on something non-acidic, it's purple. And you know, even in Australia, everyone lies. It's, you know, non-acidic tissue, and you go, you can test yourself. Buy one piece, test it.
where can we buy that?
Online. You can buy online. Thank you.
At this point, really, it's knowing the principle. You have to test your own materials, what's available, but if you understand the principle of something that is acidic versus something that's not, the principle of creating a barrier, the principle of creating a box, for example, those will really help. Two more questions and then we wrap up for break.
Sorry for asking again. So the question is primarily about storage. So the first question is regarding textiles, specifically textiles that are created by, organic kind of material. Is it better for the material to be folded or rolled?
Rolled, but it's not very practical for something that's very, very wide. You know, actually for a lot of Asian textiles, the vintage ones, we're quite lucky because of the backstrap loom that they're made on, it's narrow, so it's easier to roll. But once they start stitching them together and making these amazing artworks with lots, then sometimes it can be very problematic. And then you want to be folding, but folding with other support material, like a sheet or something, so that you're not folding it with a tight crease. There's other material there to kind of support it.
And also, if you don't have space, and the only way that you can store, for example, your costume, your clothing, then the only way is to fold your clothing. Then you have to support those pieces. Make sure that you will create a strong fold that will eventually tear long term.
Because it will, especially silk.
Yes,
especially silk.
Okay, last, I guess, supporting to that, the thing is that you use cotton, right, to, for the storage of your art or for your artifacts. It was mentioned that the cotton must be washed. Washed in what way and with what? Other than water?
It's a funny question actually, because a lot of people ask me, you know, this question even in Australia, because conservation detergents are very hard to access. Or if you order them, they come in a big drum for 50,000 years. It's like ridiculous, huh? So I know this sounds counterintuitive, but use the cheapest dishwashing liquid you can get. The cheapest. And the reason you want the cheapest one is because the expensive ones have the surfactant, the detergent, right? Plus EDTA, plus additives, fragrances, colors, dyes, chemicals, everything, right? The cheap one, it's just the detergent, no add-on, right? So actually, this is where we can benefit by having the cheapest one. It's just straight detergent. No perfume, no colour, no problem, nothing that's going to be a problem. Right?
Could you use a raw soap? Instead of a detergent, could you use a raw soap? Soap.
Actually, one of the problems with soap is if some of the things that you're washing is hydrogen sulfide, so pollution, the black. The soap, the combination of that pollution on your object with soap creates an insoluble metal. And that's, like the soap scum, right? And soap scum on your artwork can only be removed at 70 degrees. No one wants to put an artwork at 70 degrees. It's too, so soap is not recommended. Historically, it was used because soap is naturally alkaline, not acidic. And traditional knowledge, I very much support. But if you're in a city like this, your pollution is not traditional pollution. So if you're out in the provinces and your dirt is mud or something, then soap might be a good option, but not for work that's here. So it's a bit of both. It depends what the dirt is.
Also to add, some institutions, if they have, they're going to use unbleached, undyed natural cotton for their storage. They just, rinse them with water.
Yeah.
Just with water. You can put them inside the washing machine with just water. Just
And
run it.
And the reason we do wash it is because they use a lot of additives on the fabric so it can run through the machinery and not get stuck, huh? So there's actually size, there's anti-static, there's all of these additives. When you buy new sheets and you go to sleep on them, they're horrible until they've been washed. That's because they're coated. And it's the reason we're washing that is to remove that coating so that we have no additional unpredictable chemicals with our heritage object.
Sir Director.
I may add to that. You see the roll to we use large diameter tube to roll on, not that the small one. Okay, roll in a large diameter tube, and then the tube sometimes is acidic, the carbon. So we wrap it with Maynila.
And even sometimes if you can't access mylar, the good quality glad wrap, the food wrap, can also, it's a good substitute. Mylar is better, but if it's at home, if you're at home, it's a good option. But you're right, I do the same. Yeah.
So do it roll in a small diameter.
Fortunately for us, Hybet is already locally available. So
It still needs pre-washing.
It's Hybet.
What is the term?
Hybet.
It's a trademark brand.
Hybet.
T-Y-B-E-K.
Concrete.
It's a kind of non-woven polyethylene spun bond. It's like paper, but it acts like it's not a paper, but it's like a fabric paper. So
Yeah. So it's a polyester, but it's made the same as paper. So it's all of the fibers, and then it's heat pressed like paper. But it's actually a polyester, so it's
Non-acidic.
non-acidic. It's good to wash it because it still has a coating to go through the machinery. But the good thing about Tyvek is it breathes with the humidity. If you put water on it, it doesn't go through. But humidity will breathe.
Okay.
So it's really great.
Is Pelon a similar material? Pelon?
We don't have.
Pelon is the cushion filling, the plastic, yeah. So Pelon is stable, it's archival, okay? The only issue with Pelon, and sometimes for very big maps and things, you might want some cushioning or textile, you can put some Pelon, or if you're folding, a little bit of Pelon in the edges to support it. And the only real problem with Pelon is when you cut it, you get tiny pieces. If you put it in a black light, the black light, like at the disco that makes your gin and tonic look blue, right? If you put that black light on your textile afterwards, you'll see all of the Pelon pieces, right? Yeah, and so, we try and put still a cotton barrier and put the Pelon inside.
One last question from the group before we turn it over to the conservators. Yes.
I have this piece of mold, large one, that has molds and it's reversed. How do I manage it?
So the problem is not the painting, the problem is the home. So mold cannot grow where it's windy. Right?
So
There's no mold where it's windy. It's only when you have a small cupboard, and you have no air, and all of a sudden your shoes, whatever, it's moldy. It's because there's no circulation of air.
Even though I have the window,
How often do you open the window?
every day, because I paint.
Yeah.
It's what it is. I noticed the most parts I clean it using dishwashing and cotton pad. Is it okay? Or I maybe use the medium for cleaning wrong. What are the recommended solutions?
The problem with you adding any solution on mold, what does mold like? Moisture. You're going to add more moisture.
So what should I?
So you can, that's a tricky one. That really needs someone professional, and you need to actually look with a microscope if it's mold or if it's pollution, because maybe it's not mold. Especially because what I'm hearing is if you open your window every day, you've got ventilation. It should not be mold. It's probably dirt, pollution, dirt. Do you work with charcoal?
No, I work with oil and acrylic on.
Okay.
Yes, and you also have to address the mold issue because mold is a health hazard if it's active. So if you see a lot of mold formation, then you should be wearing protective, like a mask, and then you should really kill the mold first before you touch it, or else otherwise it will just spread out.
Now you can kill the mold 15 minutes in full sunlight.
I didn't read that.
Huh?
I did already.
So you've killed it.
Yeah.
It's not getting worse, but you haven't removed it. That requires a
Yes.
conservator.
Even one one mold filament, if you are actually mold is a global issue. It's not. It's even in developed countries where conservation is very advanced. Mold is an issue. There are actually many mold remediation treatments that are being employed. So even if
But some of them are very dangerous and toxic,
toxic,
and we're not going to tell you how to do it.
They're toxic, a health hazard.
Because
Yes.
just leave it away.
So yeah, you have to consult.
Yeah, that one needs an expert.
Yes.
Talking about malls, you have to invest in dehumidifier. That's
Yes.
dehumidifier, and it's already locally available, a very small one now. So you don't need a big dehumidifier because I have
Humidifier next to Joe.
Not humidifier.
We're already very
and then just collect the water there.
Yes. It absorbs the water.
But if you use a dehumidifier, do not open your window anymore.
Yeah.
Because you can't dehumidify the whole world.
Thank you.
I think we have had a good discussion so far. So I'm going to give each conservator one last parting advice for our guests, perhaps, or anything you'd like to share, and then we're going to call it a day. So I'd start with Sir Loreto. Please pass the mic to you, and then.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you for inviting me here. And my presentation is the photos, the picture in my slides is not it's erased. So this is the one that is the result of the treatment. You see that and that one. Yeah, in the capillary washing, and then I did the retouching or repainting the line, And then simple this one. The hardest part in the other maps is we have to look for reference, the drawing, but we could not look anymore in the internet and even outside. It's a very rare map, so sometimes it's just there. We could not do anymore. So thank you. Ortigas Foundation is there. If you have some artifacts, paper artifacts, you could go and consult us. But now we could not accept anymore. It's too many clients already lining up. So we could do some consultation and then you could just do it at home. Thank you very much.
As I mentioned in my talk earlier, preventive conservation is something that can be done at home by anyone. And I think it's a good way of preserving your paintings, your artworks, because prevention, of course, is, as we know, it's better than cure. So I hope artists or the owners of artworks are able to do this eventually. Thank you for inviting.
Thank you. Yeah.
I want to thank you all for your patience. We've covered a lot of ground in a very short period of time, right? And I think that what I want to stress with Lou here is that conservators are always going to prefer to be the fence at the top of the cliff, not the ambulance at the bottom, right? Yeah. There is no such thing as a stupid question. We have dedicated our lives to protecting our universal heritage. And like a doctor, there is not a stupid question. Ask a professional, we'll help you. Because we want to help at the top of the cliff, not at the bottom. Right? So don't feel embarrassed. We have dedicated our life to this research. We don't expect other people to just magically know. Okay, so feel free to ask and don't, trust someone with no science. Restorers, stay away from. Professional conservators who are doing the research with science, and I commend you both. It's been excellent to be in your company. Thank you very much.
At this point, we'd like to recognize our conservators and give thanks. So, Ms. Stanley will be giving our token of appreciation to Ms. Victoria Pierce. Thank you so much. It's also to Ms. Lourdes Po and Sir LORETO Apilado. Thank you so much. And to our guests, thank you for visiting Fundación Sansó and listening to the talk. We have merienda. We have pancit there for you and coffee.